Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Post-fight reaction for Frazer Clarke getting stopped devastatingly in the first round by Fabio Wardley, who said after the fight that he turned around the mistakes of the first fight to get this result. So this was meant to be somewhere like a 50-50 a pick'em fight, but Fabio Wardley said no, delivered a right hand early in this fight, and it rocked Frazer Clarke. Clarke on the ropes in the corner looked to regroup, but Fabio Wardley stayed on him, took a shot or two, but he managed to get Clarke to sort of turn into the ropes, and as he was coming back, lands a left hook, continues following up, throwing punches, and it's a huge right hand again, a second huge right hand for the fight, and Frazer Clarke is clattered into the ropes, as you can see here. Not good. The referee starts a count, but partway through it's obvious that Frazer Clarke is in no fit condition to continue. The referee, Victor Lachlan, waves it off. This was a huge result for Fabio Wardley, a statement for his career. And he said ahead of the fight he wanted to take Frazer Clarke's head off his shoulders, and he did. Huge statement for Fabio Wardley, as he said straight after the fight into the camera, war by name, war by nature. And really it was the first big right hand that Fabio Wardley sat down on that hurt Frazer Clarke. Before that, the first 2 minutes or so, you did have a case where Frazer Clarke and Wardley were feeling each other out and trading jabs. And Wardley looped in that right hand, did the business, and it was all downhill from there. So Fabio Wardley after the fight. So we'll get into his comments and then onto a few thoughts about the potential what next, because statement to the heavyweight division that he's here, and if you're not careful, you can be stopped and stopped early. Some may say perhaps Frazer Clarke was caught cold. Whatever the case may be, he could not continue, and Fabio Wardley turns around that draw from the first fight. And actually he talked about, he had a number of problems ahead of that fight, and his handlers had sort of said, should we be going into this fight? He didn't allude to it in terms of what it exactly was, but it sounded like outside of the ring issues. He referenced mistakes that he made in that fight as well, but he was able to get things right. This fight, he said he just needed to set things up better, and certainly he did obviously set up a big right hand, and he didn't let Frazer Clarke off the hook. The first fight when he dropped him, the bell saved Clarke, not this time around. Actually, you could probably argue with the ropes involved, with the first, backing him up to the ropes, rocking him, that helped Clarke. Maybe he would have gone down if he hadn't have had that support, but, whatever the case, Wardley was deadly with the finish. He said, when he was asked about the who next, he said he wants belts and he wants titles. And he said whoever, he needs to fight, and whether that's in Saudi Arabia or wherever, he's willing to get in there alongside the guys that he needs to do to make it happen. So staying away from names, and obviously right now with Riyadh season, the Saudis helping dictate who fights who, Fabio Wardley with that performance and that sort of knockout, and the knockouts are something that is valued by the Saudis, really he is a good shot for a decent fight. And I do think though that there is still a bit of a gap and a bit more seasoning for Fabio Wardley, who doesn't have a background in the amateurs. He had a couple of white collar fights before he turned over. He's still learning on the job. I still think there is partially that European level that he needs to traverse, and part of that will help him, give him more rounds and experience for when he does truly step up to face a world level contender of note. Someone who I immediately thought of after the fight was Otto Wallin. He's coming off a loss to Anthony Joshua, and while Wallin in recent years has sort of yo-yoed up between, big fights and kind of, nothing in between, he needs to do something to prove that he should be in the conversation. I thought this fight with Wardley, if it was to be made, that would be perfect for both, because I think Wardley needs to face someone who is a bit tricky, a southpaw, someone who can box and move, a different style, because it's all well and good having someone who is not as mobile and a bit more static like a Frazer Clarke. And as the commentators were pointing out during the fight, Wardley does like to set his feet, and he finds it harder to punch and be as effective on the move when he's moving moving his feet. So someone who can box and move, and someone who's a bit cute like an Otto Wallin, and we saw against Murat Gassiev how effective he could be. I thought that would be a good test. There are some other names. What about a Murat Gassiev, if they wanted to make that? There are other names out there. I mean, Jared Anderson was a name that was thrown out by the broadcast team. I don't think that's maybe the right fight right now. Maybe in a few fights' time, depending on where they're at. But there are other names. Potentially, Stephen Shaw, F.A. Ajugba, Jermaine Franklin. I sort of think those guys are on par at that sort of European level as well, and at a good European level. If you were to, translate it across to some American fighters. There are some other names, but I think we'll have to just wait and see and watch the space. But it'd be good to see him out again soon, perhaps in 6 months or so. At least, between now and then, there should be some more cards getting made. And with the way that he performed, he could be in the conversation for a really good fight. So I like what I see with Wardley moving to 18-0. Wasn't the result I expected in terms of being so early. I was picking Wardley to win this one, but given what happened in the first fight, wow. Destruction and devastation, and one for the highlight reel. Fabio Wardley gets people taking notice with this performance. What did you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.